Right, we're back with another video. This time we're going to be looking at, we'll just get my camera angles correct. We're going to be looking at this one, which is outcome 4, and it's all about fault diagnosis and rectification. And if we just turn over the page, we have quite a few bits and pieces in here to look at. So we're going to look at this fault diagnosis. Now what I want us to look for here, I'm just going to turn to a blank one because I'm using somebody's portfolio and I don't want to see anything that's too delicate. Right, so you've got obviously fault number 1, which I've turned over on because there's some writing on it. Fault number 1, fault number 2, number 3, etc. So if we look here, we're on fault diagnosis and rectification. And we're on fault number 3 there. So what we're after now, because of its sporadic nature, this maintenance section, as I'll call it, or fault diagnosis and rectification, actually doesn't need to be directly observed. If it's occurring while the assessor's there, then they can directly observe it, that's not a problem. But because of how it happens, it doesn't need to be directly observed, so you can record it yourself. So we go job location, put the date in, and then we say, right, okay, well, what system type was the fault on? Was it on a cold water system, hot water, central heating, sanitation, or rainwater? It might be a central heating fault. It might be a hot water fault. Just tick off which one it is. Then you're going to look at confirm what procedure below was used to diagnose the fault. Right, so you tick off. So you might be a discussion with the user, the customer. Yeah, it might just be a phone call and you've bobbed round, had a look. When you get there, you've used manufacturer's instructions or a diagnosis flow chart to actually diagnose the fault. So overview of how the fault was diagnosed. So before you fill that in, you've got to tick off, right, it was a discussion with customer or whichever one you've chosen. And then how did you diagnose the fault? Did you actually try it out? Was it a suck it and see? Did you have a go at it? Look, have a look, see if the actual appliance was working how it should be, and then you could diagnose it from there. So that goes in that box. Over here, confirm process for decommissioning. So how did you decommission the system to be able to undertake the replacement of the component part or something along those lines? Overview of the repair or replacement process. So a little explanation in there as to how you actually did it, and then how you've brought it back into operation. All right, so recommissioning, so bringing it back into operation, checking it works, and then handing it over to the customer, letting them know how that is now working and if there's any changes to the operation procedure because you've put a new part on. Underneath here we got provide photograph. So you might have a photograph of the fault itself. You might have a photograph of you removing the faulty component, and then a photograph of you with the actual appliance working or something along those lines. Then it's you're signing it. Then your witness, who's witnessing it, so the person you work with, who's a qualified plumber, they will sign it off, and then you will scan that and upload that onto Smart Assessor. Now let's have a look and just see. I'm not sure if we've got it in this portfolio or not. Yes, we have. Right, so you've got to get 6 faults, and there's 2 lists. This is the second list here. Right, so learning outcome 4. I'll just see if I can get my angles right again so we can see this better. Right, so here we've got a list ranging from expansion vessels, motorized valves, macerators, thermostats, programmers, etc. Right, so ideally faults 4, 5 and 6 need to come from that list. Faults 1, 2 and 3 need to come from this list. Pump failure, leak, trap seal loss, expansion and contraction, system failure, that type of thing, a tap or a valve failure. Yeah, so if you work it where you're doing fault number 1 from this list, then you do fault number 2 from this list, fault number 3 from this list, and then you do faults number 4, 5 and 6 from, bear with me, do apologise, bear with us, from this list. Okay, so we've got a list there. If I scan over, you can see we're on fault 4. Exactly the same layout, everybody. Job location, date, rainwater system, sanitation, central heating, hot water, cold water, customer, manufacturer instructions, etc. Still the same 4 boxes and then a little space down there for photographs. If you're filling this in though and you're uploading it to Smart Assessor, then a digital image will suffice, so you don't need to print them off and put them in your paper portfolio. Right, so that is the maintenance section, as I'm calling it, but obviously it is actually called Perform Fault Diagnosis and Rectification Procedures. Okay, right, that's that one concluded. We'll be back again with our next helpful video.